one right after another, didn't even stop my IP address. How do you know that 100 people didn't go out there and trash it or give it all positives because they want it? So I'm just very concerned. When I ran, I got a quote for what it would cost to send a flyer to everybody's house. It was $893. They couldn't have spent $1,000 out of that $75,000 that you've allotted to do an individual link for all of us to know that it was just our residents and not just the residents that have Facebook or Nextdoor or Jersey Village News, but the ones in the apartments or the ones that don't use smart technology. It was just sloppy. And I don't blame you all for that because it wasn't you, but I do feel like you hold the responsibility because you did solicit this company. And so I just ask you to take all that into consideration. But thank you for being open and transparent.
Thank you. Next comment card I have is from Simon Hughes.
Hello, Simon Hughes, 15409 Lakeview. Oddly enough, I'm here to talk to you or ask you a couple of questions. It has nothing to do with Tiers 2, KHJR, Village Center, City Hall. So, new topic. I live at 15409 Lakeview, about 4 houses north of Lakeview and Philippine. There's a house directly across the street from me that's under construction. It's been under construction for probably, I'm gonna say at least 2 years. And I understand, you know, with COVID and supply chain issues, et cetera, there are going to be delays. But seeing it every day, I observe that very little activity is happening on a consistent basis. And the house, while when it's completed, I'm sure it's going to be beautiful, add to the neighborhood. While it's under construction, it is no doubt an eyesore. They're not maintaining the property at all. It's overgrown. They did, at my request, put the portalette behind a sign. But I think that with the construction there, and there's construction, obviously, the houses along East Jersey, one under construction, there's one on Jersey here that just got demoed. As more construction happens here in the city, I think the city would be, it would do the city well to implement an ordinance. One, that if you're going to put a porta-can on the property, put a little cedar fence around it. A lot of other cities do that with, I mean, in the Memorial area and Bel Air, you'll see that. And it's just something that, you know, makes it a little less ugly. The second thing is perhaps, I know that when y'all issue a permit, I don't know what the deadline is or if there is a deadline, but if y'all could implement something so that there are checks so that if somebody has legitimate delays, in construction, you always have delays, but legitimate delays are one thing. To let a property go and just be waiting, I don't know if the owners ran out of money, I don't know if the contractor went insolvent, I don't know what's going on, but if the city could implement some sort of ordinance or structure to keep a check on these things, that way the new construction, which y'all are trying to encourage, new residential construction in Jersey Village, will hopefully happen more quickly, and while it is happening, it won't be such an eyesore. I would appreciate y'all coming up with an ordinance. I'd be happy to talk to anyone who's trying to create some, put together some language. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Simon. And I know some of those things we do have under our current ordinances. You know, obviously I don't know them off the top of my head, but some of what you brought up, that's certainly something we can take a look at. Okay, next comment card I have is from Michael Stembridge.
Mayor, councilpersons, city manager, good evening. Michael Stembridge, 15422 Jersey Drive. I had the privilege to watch an online presentation, as you all may have, by the Harris County Flood Control District about some stormwater conveyance tunnels. And I believe if you go to hcfcd.org/tunnels, I think you can get filled in. Yeah, hcfcd.org/tunnels. That's where the project is. This is a $30 billion project by the county. So we're talking county project here. Some 144 miles, I might be wrong on that, of tunnels, stormwater conveyance tunnels are going to be buried. And, you know, it sounds kind of like, you know, oil drilling type of, earth technology. I have no idea about that stuff. But, so let me get to the point. So and everybody's, paying taxes and stuff. And so on the map, there's some maps that you can look at probably there at that website I gave. And you can find all this on Harris County Flood District website. The tunnels, the projected tunnels map shows like Greens Bayou Tunnel going all the way from, wherever in the city to 610, all the way to Beltway 8. The Buffalo Bayou Tunnel goes all the way from 610 to Beltway 8. Very extensive, nice. The White Oak Bayou Tunnel goes from 610, just kind of above 610, about halfway's worth between 610 and Beltway 8. So, I'm preaching to the choir, you know what I'm getting to. It's not going to make it all, this is projected right now, does not go all the way up to us at Beltway 8 and 290, White Oak Bayou. So, as a former flood victim, and Jersey Village has done so much on flood mitigation, I'm not criticizing here. I'm coming here as a friend, not a foe. I would really love if I'm just one person. I'm just one guy that flooded with my family. You guys are public leaders, and I know this is on the county level. I know that it is not in your hands, but anything you could do to lobby the county or leaders you may have some type of good communication relationship with or something, that Jersey Village could be connected to this tunnel system and Project Z08. It's Project Z08, and Tommy Joe Scott, she was given a lot of information, or maybe the gentleman, the other guy, his first name was Scott, but they were given a lot of information. And I think that all this water is draining down from these new projects upstream. We're at the bottom of the bayou, kind of in JV. And they widened up above us real good. They came with some bulldozers and kind of widened some where we are, but I guess we wanted it widened more. But a tunnel, also the choke point, that Beltway 8 is kind of it's kind of been a choke point ever since it was erected. Our home flooded like 3 or 4 times since that Beltway was erected. And that's something my mother-in-law has been always pointing out to me. What are you going to do about the choke point? A tunnel could go beneath the choke point, the Beltway 8 choke point, and flow all this water from the upstream projects down through JV and out to the Gulf, out to wherever they're going to take it along Beltway 8, whatever they're going to do. These are big 35, 45 diameter tunnels. It's $3 billion per 10 miles. It looks like about 10 or 20 more miles they'd have to go to get up through JV. But this is a $30 billion project. We're all going to pay taxes for it. We ought to be included. I would like us to be included because then it could get the water completely out of JV and get it onto the Gulf or the channel or whatever it is. So this is a great project, I feel, and I'd really like to have JV included. I wrote HCFCD and said, can you please include JV on this? Because people are going to pay all this money for it anyways, and this would be a good way to get it on out of there, the water and stuff. And I'm not really going by my notes, but the Tommy Joe Scott had a lot of information. You may be able to see the footage from last Thursday night where I watched it online, and I just think it would be really great, and also if you're going to develop the 290 area, or if even a client is, it would help with that drain off too. When E127 gets widened, then it can just go right out to the tunnels and just go right out to the Gulf, the channel. And that's all. I just really support the Tunnels Project Z08, and it's hcfcd.org/tunnels, and you can communicate with them as just a regular person or as a leader.
Thank you,
whatever.
Michael.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got information here. We'll look into it further. The next card I have is from Mark Malloy.
Hi, my name's Mark Malloy. I live at 7803 Hamilton Circle, past city council member for the city of Jersey Village, Texas. Citizens' comments for the 06/20/2022 city council meeting. Please make my verbal comments and documents given to the city secretary a permanent record of this meeting. I'm here tonight to talk to and ask questions of the Jersey Village government officials and city manager. I'm asking the Jersey Village government to make good on city Councilman James Singleton's statement to the citizens of Jersey Village, Texas, that he made on a social media website the day of the Jersey Village regularly held election on May 7, 2022, where he said verbatim, during this coming budget year, we will be increasing homestead to 20%. You, the JV City Council, will be making that decision at this meeting to prove as Councilmember Singleton's statement was true. I'm asking that the JV government to give the citizens of Jersey Village, Texas, their state of Texas allowed 20% homestead exemption, and I'm asking the JV government to increase the additional 65-year and older homestead exemption from the current $100,000 to $165,000. I'm now going to talk about and ask questions about regular agenda item number 7, which is the JV government's forced through without a specific vote by the citizens of Jersey Village construction of a new $5.7 million golf course, clubhouse, and events center that could have been easily placed on the May 7, 2022 ballot to get the JV citizens, the citizens of Jersey Village, their approval. And so anyway, there's a lot of history that goes on with the council considering what they were going to do with the clubhouse. They originally hired an architect for $14,000 to do an evaluation of the existing clubhouse to determine the cost of remodeling that clubhouse. And that estimate was $700,000 to $800,000. The JV government decided that that was too much money to put into the existing clubhouse. The JV government then decided to find out how much it would cost to build a new clubhouse and came up with an estimated cost of $1.3 million, but then decided that they could use hotel motel tax revenue to build a new golf course, clubhouse, and convention center. And the estimated cost would be $2.4 million. And so then they decided, okay, well, we're going to hire another architect to take and draw up a 2-story clubhouse convention center, and they paid $189,000 to that architectural consultant to do that, and also paid him to determine how much it would cost to build that 2-story clubhouse convention center. And then after they took and they sent out the bids to the contractors, they came back with bids of $5 million, $5.3 million, and $7 million. The JV government was flabbergasted and asked the consultant how their estimate could be so much below the contractor's quotes. So they put the golf course clubhouse on hold. The JV government put the golf course, clubhouse, and convention center on hold. They decided that that was too much money to spend. And so now what they've done is they've decided to hire another architectural firm for $325,000. And they're, basically now going to take and go into doing another golf course, clubhouse, event center, and the estimated cost of that is going to be $5.7 million. And so what I'm coming down to on this whole thing is this started out to be $700,000 to $800,000, and now it's $5.7. The city council was considering doing a bond referendum to ask the citizens if they would indebt themselves for $10 million to do the work to build the new golf course, clubhouse, convention center, and do a bunch of other work to the golf course. And so basically where I'm coming to at this part of it is that, they're now still not going to allow the citizens to make a decision if they want to spend the money on doing that. And so the golf course for the period
That's time, Mark.
of April.
Thank you. The next comment card I have is from Frank Marr.
Frank Marr, I live at 16514 St. Helier. I come to talk to mainly the younger people of the city about traffic at Post Elementary. the picking up and the dropping off of our students, the grandchildren, our own children, and the traffic condition down there. I go down there 4 or 5 times a week to pick up or drop off and park on Congo and wait 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it might be. Last year, about 2 months ago, I've had the mirrors on my truck hit twice. I've called the police down there and talked to the officer. Come to find out, the car parked next to the houses has a permit because he lives there, and they can park there during school hours. So I come with a problem. I hope a solution might work out. I brought this to the mayor's attention at one of his meetings in the last few weeks ago. And what I am suggesting, and I hope I'm not too late, that our city manager and engineering would look at adding 2 feet wider on Congo from Solomon to Ecuador on the high school side of the street. I don't know what's under the ground there as far as water, gas lines, electric, or any of that. But if we added 2 feet to the high school side of the street, and on top of that, I think we should go to the school district and see if they would pay some of the increase of what the width of the street is, and by us adding 2 more feet on the school property. So there's a couple things that really need to be done. We need to talk to the engineer. We need to see what's underneath it. Who we talked to at the high school, I don't know. Can they donate that property to us? And would they be willing to help us finance it? And it's not just for the elementary school, but it's for the football fields and all those down there on Friday and Saturday nights, and I think Thursday nights some of the junior varsity teams play down there. So I want to end by saying it's a hazard, and it can be corrected. It's like everything else. It's going to take dollars and some common sense to work it out. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Frank. The last comment card I have is from Kimberly A. now.
My name is Kimberly Anal, and I live at 15601 Singapore Lane. As my 8th installment on Jersey Village, to celebrate the beginning of another summer, the refreshing, cool waters of the Jersey Village Municipal Pool will wash the hot temperatures away. With the construction of the Jersey Village Meadow Golf Course in the late 1950s, there was also a pool constructed in the early 1960s near the current clubhouse. With the slow population growth of this northwest area and the passing of Clark Henry in 1972, the golf course was sold to Cameron Iron Works in 1974 for their employees to enjoy. In order to make up for the lack of a community area swimming pool, Cameron Iron Works donated to the city $100,000 for the construction of a pool and related facilities for recreation. City Council had quite the work cut out for them regarding gathering bids for the pool construction company, building corrections, maintenance contracts, creating a parking lot, sidewalks, entry booth, safety fence, tables, cabana cover, and a zoning ordinance change approval. The builder chosen was Tropical Pool Company with Mr. Furr as the representative. A small Z shape was chosen. This small pool is 200,000 gallons, now with 2 types of slides, a diving board, and a newly installed rock climbing wall. You can get a good laugh watching the climbers drop back into the deep end. There is a separate shallow pool a few steps away for very young children to enjoy with a responsible adult. The pool also has lap lanes for those who really like to swim, with an area for those that prefer to doggy paddle. Invaluable lifeguards are on duty. In 2018, a splash pad was installed for toddlers, younger kids, and probably some adults to cool off and enjoy water shooting around while under the protection of purple and yellow sunshades. Clark Henry Park is also full of other fun and energy-using activities on its 7.5 acres, such as soccer, baseball fields, picnic tables, a covered pavilion with basketball hoops, restrooms, a concession booth, and kids' play areas, including the recently installed rock climbing wall for those adventurous types. Mature oak trees provide shade next to the grassy open areas. In 2012, a hike and bike hard surface trail opened beginning at the footbridge at the northernmost parking lot point that follows the perimeter of the park and bayou along trees, the 2 school complexes, and water detention ponds, ending at the sidewalk for West Gulf Bank, making it 0.8 miles. But if you continue along the sidewalks westward to Solomon, north to Congo, east to Ecuador to the starting point, you will have a 1.63 mile loop. Besides all the fun described above, Clark Henry Park is also a host of various festivals and concerts. In addition to the Founders Day Festival on April 9th, the 4th of July celebration is a must to attend. The city will host their small town parade from the Civic Center down Jersey Drive with numerous participants to wave and cheer on beginning at 5:30. The celebration continues with food, drinks, bouncy houses, 2 live music groups, and ending the day with another burst of professional fireworks to mesmerize folks of all ages. Celebrating the gift of our Jersey Village community with public parks, available swimming and water excitement, festivals, laughter, and happy folks would make Clark and Bessie Henry pleased as they hosted social gatherings at their F&M Dairy Ranch on the land that we now proudly call our home. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. Okay, those are all of the comment cards that I have, which brings us to the city manager's report. Austin Blease.
Mayor and councilors, we have the report in front of you. If anybody has any questions, we're happy to answer those.
Any questions from members of council for the city manager? No? All right. That brings us to the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that a member of council would like to have pulled and considered as part of the regular agenda?
F10, please.
Okay, F10 will be considered in the regular agenda. Any other consent agenda items that a member of council would like to pull? Okay, it looks like it's just F10. At this time, I would entertain a motion regarding the modified consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda minus F10.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Those against? Any abstentions? The consent agenda as modified passes unanimously. That brings us to the consent agenda item that we pulled. Item F10, consider ordinance number 2022-23, amending the City Village, or the Jersey Village Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Article 4, Division 2, Section 2-142, to amend the schedule of fees related to water meters, providing a severability clause, providing for appeal, and providing an effective date. Robert Bassford, Assistant City Manager.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. This item is brought forth to you because the City of Jersey Village has received some requests for water meter testing from residents concerned with meter accuracy. City staff has determined charges should be established to recover the costs associated with the meter accuracy testing. The city has experienced a steady increase in the cost to provide an acceptable level of service to its citizens, and the city wishes to not only continue, but to improve its level of service to all citizens and customers now and in the future. The proposed charge of the meter testing will be the actual cost incurred by the city at an estimated rate of $100 to $150, depending on the size of the meter. Costs will be reimbursed to the city at 100% if the meter is found to be inaccurate after testing. Accurate is defined as meeting or exceeding the guidelines for accuracy as established by the American Water Works Association. The accuracy limits are typically 98.5% to 101.5% at a test of 100 gallons. Residents may request a meter accuracy test through the utility billing division. They at that point would fill out a meter test request form, sign the waiver, and pay the current market rate for the meter test. The utility billing division will coordinate the on-site accuracy bench testing utilizing a third-party testing service. If the meter fails the on-site accuracy test, the meter will be replaced, and the corresponding account will be evaluated to determine if any billing correction is warranted. If the meter is found to be accurate in accordance with the standards set forth by the American Water Works Association, the meter will not be replaced, and the citizen will assume responsibility for all associated costs.
All right. Any discussion on this item?
I had a question. If you can tell me, how often in your experience are they inaccurate when y'all go to test?
In my 12-ish years in city governments, I've never seen one be inaccurate, at least not inaccurate in the way that it would read too fast. Older meters do tend to slow down, and so that would read in the residents' favor. But I've never seen one read in the city's favor.
How many of these are we getting, let's say, over the past few years, these requests on a per annual basis?
We typically see somewhere between 3 to 7, 3 to 8. It just kind of depends upon the year.
And I didn't realize until we reread this, again, this goes to a third party. And so their costs are going up, so our costs are going up with that. Is that right?
So our costs, we pay the bill. I mean, it's been the policy, I guess. We're looking to codify the policy with this one, so everybody's aware.
In my involvement in building construction and stuff, they're very rarely off. People ask for it a lot, but they're very rarely off.
I will say this came up fairly recently where, and every once in a while I hear about an issue with a meter where there was some concern about whether or not it was actual usage or whether it was a leak or whether it was the meter that was inaccurate. And I think that may have been part of what may have sort of pushed to look and make sure that we kind of had all of our ducks in a row as far as having this properly set out in our ordinances. I think the key here is that we want to make sure that people are only asking for a test, not because, I didn't expect this this water bill to be what it is. It really should be something where they've looked, at least reasonably looked at other things to check to see, is it something else, which it almost always is. In fact, in the case recently, it was just the water usage was primarily due to the program for the sprinkler system was just watering way too much, or was watering a lot more at least, and they just didn't realize it. And so you always want to take the opportunity for a water bill that's way out of your expectations as a sign that you need to look to see if there's something leaking or some other explanation. And then if those don't seem to pan out, you could look at the water meter itself, but again, that tends to be pretty rare. But we just want to make sure that we're, at the end of the day, the utility fund pays for itself. And so you're either going to have the person who wants the test done paying for it, or all of us will share in the cost of that. That's just the way it is because it's a fairly closed system as far as that fund goes. I think this is really just codifying what was already the practice in the past, and,
Right.
and I think it's a good policy.
So just, go ahead.
But this is not to be confused with a meter reread. So if you think that the meter was read incorrectly, that's a very simple process for someone to come out and reread the meter.
Right, and we still would go out and do that at no extra charge at all.
Yeah, this is more of an issue of a mechanical flaw with the meter not correctly measuring the amount of water going through, yeah.
And we have been passing along those costs in the past, and this is just codifying that? Okay.
Any further discussion on this ordinance? If not, I would entertain a motion at this time.
I'll motion to approve ordinance number 2022-23. I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All of those against? Any abstentions? The ordinance passes unanimously. Which brings us to the top of our regular agenda. Item G1, consider resolution number 2022-34, appointing a committee member to fill the unexpired term ending September 30th, 2023 for place A3 on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. Lori Cootie, City Secretary.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. City Council considered appointments to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee during its May 18 regular session meeting. Several appointments were made during that meeting. However, shortly after that May 18 meeting, Glenn Jakoviec, who served in place 1, resigned since he no longer lives in Jersey Village. Upon receipt of his resignation, his place was filled in accordance with the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee's rules for filling vacancies, leaving position A3 vacant as follows. The rules are as follows. Basically, when a regular voting member resigns or vacates office, then the A1 moves up into that position, A2 moves up to A1, and so forth. So that left at this time position A3 vacant. So this item is to fill the vacant position A3 by appointment. We've received several applications. We've received one from Andrea Grimm, Sarah Bowden, Alyssa Ross, Claire Towery, Emma Aguirre, Christina Sheehy, and Karen Fitzgerald.
All right. Any discussion on this item?
Yeah, I think a lot of these names are really fantastic, and I know many of them personally. Years ago, I don't remember the last time this happened, but this committee, at one time, you actually interviewed or had some interaction with the committee before we appointed anybody, and the committee reviewed the applications and gave a recommendation, and we haven't done that in a long time, but I know Claire Towery is very active in the women's group, has more than 15 years in the city, and the committee chairman reached out and told me that she would highly recommend Claire, and I put a lot of value in that, so I would recommend Claire.
Yeah, I'll double on that. I spoke to the committee chair and about the applicants and what she was really thinking we might need, and that was also the name that I was going to suggest.
Same, I agree.
Same here. So Claire Towery.
I think before, at some point, we had mentioned about having a little more people from different backgrounds and different stages of life. Is that the best way to say that? Okay, stages of life on that committee, and I think I think she would be a good addition in giving a different perspective.
Yeah, correct. She's a board officer on the JV's women's group, so she has definitely, I think, a good grasp of some different avenues that we don't have a voice on yet.
And the great thing about the Parks and Rec Committee, even though if you're not formally on that, there's plenty of opportunities to volunteer. So I'd hope that these members and anyone else out there looks for those opportunities to contribute, even if they're not formally a part of the committee.
Yeah, I'm going to also touch on that. I know Emma Aguirre has been to the last 2 or 3 meetings and has taken on different things that we've done. So just because you aren't necessarily on the board, come to the meetings, and I promise, Doris, and we can put you to work.
Well, I'll say this is a fantastic, first of all, I'm glad to see we've got a very quick decision, but also I'm glad to see that we have so many people that are interested in helping, because obviously, as people have seen, particularly over the last couple of years, we've got very ambitious plans we've had very ambitious events that have turned out great, which of course has led to further ambitious plans, as it should, and that's going to require help to make happen. And having all of that help from within the community, number one, shows that we have a city that is tremendously dedicated to the success of programs like this, but also means we'll be able to put on bigger, better events as more people pitch in, which is great. So yeah, I definitely encourage all of the people who applied, definitely continue to help out where you can, and if there's anyone else out there who maybe is looking to get a little bit more involved, that's a fantastic way to do so. So with that, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve Resolution 2022-34 to appoint Claire Towery to fill the unexpired term in position A3 expiring September 30th, 2023.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All of those against? Any abstentions? The resolution passes unanimously. Which brings us to item G2, consider resolution number 2022-35, rescheduling the Monday, September 19th, 2022 regular city council meeting. Austin Bleak, city manager.
Mayor and councilors, for the regular September meeting, I'm going to be presenting at the ICMA conference, which is happening at the same time. So I wanted to see if the council would be willing to accommodate that and move the meeting for September. The two suggested dates are the Monday before, the Monday after, the 12th or the 26th.
Well, first off, fantastic to hear that you're presenting at the International City Management Association. I am on-call supervisor the 26th and would really appreciate it if we can make it the 12th. Otherwise, I'll make adjustments.
Yeah.
It's also a student holiday on the 26th, so I would
Yeah.
also prefer not that day. The 12th is
The
good for me.
12th would be a better choice.
Yeah, and it seems like the timeline since August is like 4 weeks from the August meeting to the 12th, so it's not like we're having meetings on top of each other. I'm fine with the 12th.
There's about a 95% chance that I will be out of the country on the 12th. So, Michelle, you want to brush up on you? Because trust me, no one wants to see me appear on the wall here by video from Spain at like 2 or 3 in the morning, whatever it would be, probably later than that. So
It
just
will
not
be
a
an
good idea.
honor.
Yeah, so that's fine. I have no problem with that. I'm sure y'all do just fine. So it sounds to me like the consensus minus me is the 12th. Okay. All right. Did you just need feedback, Austin, or is there an actual? Oh, there is a resolution. Sorry. Thank you. So with that, I would entertain a motion on the resolution at this time.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2022-35. Setting it for September 12th, 2022 at 7 p.m.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Do we have votes down here in favor? Okay. All those against? Any abstentions? The resolution passes. So start brushing up. And when I wake up in the morning from Spain, I will watch the meeting. So, all right. So, item G3, consider ordinance number 2022-24, modifying the residential homestead exemption for the City of Jersey Village, amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Jersey Village, Chapter 62, Taxation, by amending Article 1 in general, providing a severability clause, and providing an effective date. Austin Bleak, City Manager.
Mayor and councilors, during the budget retreat held on May 13th, we talked about this. If the council chooses to increase the homestead exemption, we have to let HCAD know by July 1st. So in doing the calculations based upon the property values that HCAD was estimating in approximately April 20th, if we increase to a full 20% and going up 6%, the total loss of revenue to the city would be just under $294,000. The average home of a value for a person receiving the over 65 exemption is, based upon that data, $332,000. Based upon that, moving homestead exemption to 20% and keeping the over 65 exemption the same, the home would be taxed at about 50% of the value. We have in here a comparison of what the over 65 exemption paid based on average house in 2021 and 2022 would be. Based upon if we were to keep the same tax rate, the increase to somebody in an over 65 home would be about $45 difference, $43 difference. So tonight, council can choose to increase the homestead exemption tax. We do have information here on the over 65 homestead exemption and what the cost would be of any increase in there as well, if council would like to discuss that. But we do need to notify HCAD by June 30th, so that's why it's here for tonight.
Great, thank you, Austin. Any discussion on this item?
Well, first, I would like to say I hope that all of the 5 of y'all know I never intended to speak for the whole of council, and I just typed a little too quickly. I certainly see, I think we're going to hit 20%, no problem. I think everybody's in agreement on that, but just, I don't mean to speak for you. That said, I think we just raise this to 20%. If we raise it to 20%, a house that has a homestead and over 65 is taxed to 50% of the house, and I think that's a very fair assessment.
I agree. I think that's a very fair assessment. We've moved it from 40,000 to 100 last time, and I think with raising it to the 20%, I think being taxed on 50% is a very fair.
Bobby, James, just a history lesson, but I remember being a part of council when we raised it to 14%. What was it before, 6?
It was 8 prior to that increase.
A lot less than 14.
Yeah, it was 8, and prior to that it was 0. And there's a rumor about how it was dropped off to pay for something. That never happened. You can go look through all the minutes.
I think at the time we raised it to 14, we had some other issues, and we said we'd come back to that. I think now is just especially with inflation and the economy, it's really important that we revisit that and move forward with the 20%.
Does anybody have any concerns over the fact, and just asking the question does not mean I'm a person that says, let's pay taxes. I'm not that person that has any interest in that at all, period. But, we do have an aging infrastructure, and we do have a lot of capital improvements coming our way. And we also have the unique situation where when somebody calls and needs an ambulance here in the city of Jersey Village, where the city doesn't charge a resident any of that money past what is sent to their insurance. Am I correct on that? And okay. Okay. I'm going off of what I've been told from the fire chief and from Austin here, but my only concern on that is the fact that we love all of the things that make JV, and those are the things that make JV. And my only concern is that at some point, we need to be fiscally responsible. And I'm not saying we aren't by meaning that, but I also think that's something that we really need to keep in mind. That I know at the end of the day, it's $300,000, and for a lot of people, and when you're looking at big numbers, that doesn't sound like a lot. But that, $300,000 is, 2 salaries, 3 salaries, director salaries. And so it's just something I also think that needs to be mentioned, that, money matters.
I agree with that. And obviously, we never want to put ourselves in a position where we are, reducing taxes, but doing so at the sacrifice of critical services. One of the things that was a big help for us, and has been a big help for us over the last several years, is the fact that thanks to a lot of our economic development efforts, our sales tax revenues have increased substantially. We obviously saw a big benefit to that for the police department, with the crime control and prevention district that was put into place years ago. Just about a little over a year ago, we put the fire department on equal footing, providing them with a dedicated source of revenue from the sales tax. And that, if it were not for that, I would be a little bit more concerned here. But especially because we are going to see increased costs in the fire department in terms of hiring additional personnel and things of that nature. But the good news is we have continued to see that sales tax revenue increase that's helped us to be able to ensure that we have that covered. And I do think that it's not a small amount of money, because you're talking about several $100,000, but in the event if we had a year or two where there was a little bit of an issue where maybe revenues did not kind of come in as much as we thought they would, I think we can, through the budgeting process, can cover that for the most part. Maybe there will be a project or two here that we may have to push to a later year, but I think that at least as far as being able to ensure that essential services that everyone relies on and has come to enjoy in Jersey Village, I think will continue to be provided at the same and likely at a higher level. So I will say just as go ahead.
I was going to say, but to your point, I mean, it's just shifting where the money is coming from, because assuming that, you know, we lose the $300,000 in revenue, we potentially will have to increase the tax rate, which will recover that money from a different tax base or a different part of our community, right? So it's really just shifting where the money comes from, not necessarily providing a significant amount of tax relief.
Sadly, property, I mean, I think in a good way, especially if you're selling your house, property rates are going up, right? And the 10% limit has kept the valuation from going up more than 10% that cap does. Looking at the example set forth in the agenda item, even with, and this is for over 65, even with that exemption, they're still at the same tax rate. There's still extra payment coming to the city. So the city's not, this revenue loss is of potential full paid revenue, right? I 128% agree with your sentiment, though. We going into our discussions in July, we will know that we have less potential revenue to deal with, and that's going to make some great decisions on our part. I say great because I hope they're great. But, it's, you know, so we're going to have to keep all that in mind.
Now, we do have just so everyone is aware, I'm sure you've probably saw it, but we do have two different parts here that we're looking at. First, we're looking at a change in the residential homestead exemption. The ordinance as is drafted currently has a change from 14 to 20%, which is the maximum allowed under state law. The other part of the ordinance is considering a possible change to the over 65 homestead exemption. I have had a couple of residents contact me concerned about the fact that with all of the rising costs and the rising property valuations, that folks that are living off of either Social Security or a 401k or a pension, they're going to be potentially in a tighter fix than other residents. And so based on the calculations, it looks like it's fairly close to keeping it completely flat, but it's not quite there even if we did increase to a 20% homestead exemption. From the numbers we have here, obviously everyone's situation is different. So we have to, when we're setting policy, because it affects everyone uniformly for the most part, we have to sort of look at the averages. And it looks like the average valuation would still be about, taxable valuation would still be about $6,000 more than last year. If we were to increase, and we can do this, I think, in any increment we want, but just to keep it at a nice round number, if we were to increase the over 65 exemption by an additional $10,000 in value, that would put the average home for someone who is getting the over 65 exemption actually at a lower taxable value than last year. So that at least ensures, at least from the city bill, I can't do anything about school districts or anyone else, but at least from a city standpoint, their bill should be on average a little bit lower than last year. And I believe the loss of revenue for a $10,000 change would be about almost $64,000. So I would suspect we can manage. But I would entertain thoughts of council members on that.
Mayor, if I can just provide a little bit of context from what other cities do. Currently, there are only six other cities have an over 65 exemption of more than 100,000. 2 of them have it at 100,000. So there's 8 total that have 100,000 or more. Out of those 8 cities, 4 have any homestead exemption. 4 they don't provide any homestead exemption at all. So I just want to provide that information for the council as well.
I think we were all aware of that. I thought we were all in agreement pretty much before that of 20,000 and 100,000, or 20% and 100,000, keeping it where it was at.
That's where my head.
I would agree with that.
I'm okay with that, knowing that when budget comes, we may have to make adjustments.
Yeah, I not to kick the can down the road, but I would say, given future adjustments, I could, the 20% and $100,000 exemption, leaving that as is, considering that's on par with other cities, doesn't give me. But I'd like to look at this as an opportunity next year, certainly.
And then we can also review sales tax, where that is going. It continues to go up. I know we just hired 6 firefighters. We also have to put that in the back of our minds. And so I think it is a good fiscally responsible to touch on it again next year.
So it sounds to me like the consensus amongst members of council is to go with the 20%, increasing the residential homestead exemption to 20% from the current 14, and leaving the over 65 at its current level.
So council, before you make your motion, just there's one minor cleanup at what's that? Section 2, the property tax code reference is incorrect. It's supposed to be 11.13, not 1120.
I was going to strike section 2 since we're not going to change it. I would move that we approve ordinance 2022-23 with the amendments of striking section 2, renumbering the following sections, and setting the residential homestead exemption at 20% of the appraised value of the resident's homestead.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All of those against? Any abstentions? The ordinance as modified in the motion passes. Which brings us to item G4, consider resolution number 2022-36, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Project Surveillance, Inc. to perform construction observation services for the Seattle Street Reconstruction Project. Robert Bassford, Assistant City Manager.
Good evening again, Mayor, council members. City of Jersey Village has received proposal for professional services from Project Surveillance to assist city staff with construction observation throughout the Seattle Street Reconstruction Project. The purpose of this professional service will be to observe the daily activities of the contractor's work, ensure the conformance with the drawings and specifications. Project Surveillance Incorporated will keep accurate daily construction reports, photos, and videos, as well as assisting the project manager with observation and inspection of critical construction work. Additionally, Project Surveillance Inc. will, conduct constructability reviews to plans by verifying field conditions ahead of proposed work, observe the daily activities and contractors' work for conformance, keeping accurate daily construction reports, diary, photos, and videos, observe and verify quantities for progress payments, organize and prioritize time to ensure critical items of work are observed. The cost of this project will come from the overall Seattle Street project funding. It is a piece of the overall cost of the project that is factored into the budget. This is a professional service, which means we do not have to go out for public bids for this work. Project Surveillance is a reputable firm that comes with great recommendations from other cities that have used them for various projects similar to nature.
Okay, great. Thank you. Discussion amongst council on this item?
Just curious, have we used observation services before? Not necessarily this firm, but this type of work.
Previously, the engineers have done very, very limited inspection services, but nothing quite as extensive as this.
And is this required or requisite for any of the grants or federal, state funding?
It's going to help us better account for everything. It's definitely not required, but it's in our interest to make sure we have better eyes on the project to make sure the contractor is doing what they're supposed to be doing. Definitely was one of the lessons learned going through some of the previous construction projects that we've had.
Fair enough.
I was actually about to ask whether or not this was the result of lessons learned from Wall Street, because there were many, many times we chased down issues that probably could have been resolved very quickly had we had this technology on site.
Lessons learned. Yes, sir.
Any further discussion on this item? The only observation I also had was that for doing work with multiple government entities, the name Project Surveillance Inc. seems, anyway, that's just my observation, that the name was a little weird for working with government, but anyway, I would entertain a motion at this time if there's no further discussion.
I move that we approve Resolution 2022-36.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All of those against? Any abstentions? The resolution passes unanimously. Which brings us to item G5, discuss and take appropriate action concerning membership in the Harris County Mayors and Councils Association. Austin Blees, City Manager.
Mayor and councilors, the Harris County Mayors and Councils Association, we've been a part of that for many years. They've got some objectives to promote general welfare of the communities, to maintain lines of communication between various government entities and Harris County, and just kind of to aid the improvement of municipal administration in Harris County. Recently, they voted to double their dues from $750 to $1,500. It's been over 5 years since they reviewed those costs. As everybody knows, costs have gone up substantially. I know that Councilor Rubenhorst had attended sporadically in the past, but I don't think he was a very regular attender at all. They've also increased in the cost for meals and stuff like that if spouses or guests go. So we want to put this on the agenda if the council had any thoughts on this, if they wanted to continue being members, or if this is something that the council's not utilizing.
Okay. Any discussion from council on this?
Sorry. I did reach back out to Lori about this. I had never received any of the invitations to any of the events. I wasn't on the email list, so I was not aware. I actually do attend almost every event that I get emailed out, either from TML or there's a few of them. They have all acronyms that I'm still learning. So I would be interested in this. I think it's a good olive branch to have other members of different city councils and the city council members of Houston as part of, people you can call and contact. So I would at least like to try this for this coming up year with access to it.
I attended some of the events previously when I was on council before. My personal opinion, it's not worth $1,500. I don't know that the networking aspect to it is as strong as you would think that it would be. And I just didn't find the content very valuable to a city the size of Jersey Village. I think they cater to, larger cities like Sugar Land, Deer Park, cities of those size.
I attended an event this weekend that I believe was part of that, maybe the Port of Houston tour, and it was actually all the day I went when no one else was there, none from here. We all had smaller cities. It was Bunker Hill, Hunters Valley, Hunters Creek, and I was impressed. It was interesting, the stuff where people were saying, well, these are the big issues we're having, what are the issues you're having, and it's very interesting. It was interesting for me, being new to this, about how many of our issues are very mirrored in some of these smaller cities, even a little smaller than JV. So just from the one experience I had, I would say it was positive, and I think it would be a good asset, but again, I have a very limited scope here.
Well, and mine was from years ago, so it very well could have improved.
At another function, I happened to meet, received an email this morning and realized that person that I had met is actually on the board, and he lives in one of the villages off of I-10.
I think I know who you're talking about.
Anyway, and we've had a couple exchanges over email. It looked like the email to which they were sending invites to was to our old domain, ci-jerseyvillage.tx or whatnot. So maybe if that could explain some of the things. One of the things I wanted to point out was this group actually has some authority and gets to make appointments to other governmental entities. A couple of those appointments don't look like they affect Jersey Village directly at all, like the ports and the pilots board, things of that nature. To me, if we're going to do this and we're going to spend the money to do this, then we have to commit as a council that we're going to participate in these events and make the most use of it. Otherwise, we're tossing tax dollars down the drain. Now, I don't know if they'd let us join and pay our own way, like $50 for a dinner or something like that, and come just to do that. That might even be, and not be able to vote, that might be a better approach than the $1,500. I don't know, I leave it for others to discuss and input.
I've only made a couple of these meetings over the 4 years, very, very few. I've spent a lot more time networking in a couple of other associations, but I have found that the relationships that you build have been very helpful. I've got a connection to a Houston City Council member, and getting details on what their city's experiencing and what they're doing has been very helpful. A couple of times they've brought up, like, the city of Houston completely revamped their clothing donation bins. And that was going to push a huge problem into the county and into the other small cities. Thankfully, Jersey Village was already set up to combat that problem. We didn't have to change anything. But there's those kinds of things that come up from time to time, and we've always been in a good shape for them, but I'm afraid to lose that heads up on some of these things. And the appointments, one of the ones that jumps out at me is number 5, the Harris County Criminal Justice Coordinating Council members. If we could figure out how to get somebody on that, that would be helpful.
Well, I'm glad we brought this up, because at first my concern was, I'm like, doubling the cost of this, are we even going to get our money's worth? But if this council is committed to going and attending those events and taking advantage of it in order to help advance our knowledge of what other cities are doing and to try to provide better service to our citizens, then I think it's probably worth it. So
I have no doubt Michelle's going to go to everyone she can.
I'm sure.
She's been fabulous at all of that.
So, all right. I assume this was also discussed and take appropriate action, so I assume that staff has the feedback that they needed to determine how to move forward.
If we can we just have a motion and a vote? Just a motion to continue the membership?
So, at this time, I would entertain a motion regarding whatever action we would take regarding membership.
I'll make a motion to continue membership in the HCMCA.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All of those against? Any abstentions? The motion unanimously passes. So with that, we will move on to item G6. Consider resolution number 2022-37, authorizing the city manager to negotiate an agreement with Brookstone Construction for construction manager at risk of the New Jersey Meadow Golf Course Clubhouse. Robert Bassford, Assistant City Manager.
Mayor, council members, at the February council meeting, City Council authorized the city manager to begin negotiating a contract with FGMA, as known as FGM Architects, for the new clubhouse. The proposed contract utilizes a construction manager at risk format. In this format, the CMAR assumes the risk for construction or rehabilitation of a facility at the contracted price and the same manager as the general contractor, but also provides consultation to the city regarding construction during and after the design of the facility. Staff has held the introductory meetings with FGMA, as well as a majority of the schematic design meetings, as we continue to refine the design layout. We're approaching the portion of the design phase in which a CMAR should be selected and introduced to the project. The RFQ was posted on the city website May 4th, 2022. 5 responses were timely received, and a team of city staff consisting of city manager, Austin Bleast, assistant city manager, myself, golf manager Matt Jones, completed the evaluation based on the criteria outlined. In addition, we had the design team, FGMA, evaluate the proposals, and as you can see, the average and median results of the rankings are below. Tonight, we are recommending council authorize the city manager to negotiate an agreement to have Brookstone Construction provide CMAR services for the new golf course clubhouse.
Great, thank you. Discussion from council on this item.
I had one question. The table in the middle, is that a score out of 100? Could you just explain what that means a little bit?
Yes, the evaluation was in 5 categories: general requirements, 10 possible points; firm qualifications and experience, 20 possible points; staff qualifications and experience, 20 possible points; best overall approach to scope of services, 30 possible points; and documented quality of past services, 20 possible points, for a total of 100. Each category 1 through 5 by the evaluation team was ranked.
Wow. So I saw that it was unanimous, so the team that you guys did all agree on scored very, very high.
Back when I did building inspections, I've inspected stuff by Brookstone before, and I was always very impressed. They do a fantastic job in construction, their attention to detail, they're a very experienced group. I'm not surprised to see they scored so well.
I'll say from experience from where I work that if you notice this company Brookstone has a letter of recommendation from Fort Bend County, and if you have any experience with Fort Bend County, they are really, really hard to work for. I mean, which is a great thing if you're in Fort Bend County, but the fact that they got such a glowing recommendation was impressive.
I've been inside that East Aldine building and a couple of things that they built, and it's nice.
It's because they're Aggies.
So the one thing that I think is important to point out, and I know we say this often when this comes up, but it always bears repeating because there's always somebody who is not familiar with the concept. You'll notice that this is a request for qualification. And you'll notice we're also not talking about financial aspects here because we are required under the Texas Professional Services Procurement Act for certain scopes of work to go through a non-financial request for qualification that only looks at their abilities, and then essentially today what we're doing is considering whether or not to authorize the city manager to then enter into negotiations for a contract. So one of the important things also to note is, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, I believe on the construction manager at risk type of a concept, what typically happens is that although there's not a competitive bidding on the financial aspect of the fees for their services, the actual construction gets bid out, and they essentially assist in that process. They go through the bidding process to bid out all of the individual components, all of the subcontractors. And so that's where you get your cost savings from the competitive bid process, is from those subcontractors that are providing the bulk of the actual services. So, and I've also heard very good things about Brookstone. I think we've talked to them in the past about other projects, and they've always been very, very reliable and helpful, and have been tremendous in all of the areas that we've worked with them. So I can see why, based on their experience and also our experience with them in the past, why that would be an easy choice, because it sounds like it will make for a very smooth process. And I'm also glad to see that we had a lot more people involved than we did last time we went out to try to get this project done. So that's another very encouraging sign. Any further discussion on this item? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll motion to approve resolution number 2022-37, authorizing the city manager to negotiate an agreement with Brookstone Construction.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All of those against? Any abstentions? The resolution passes unanimously. Which brings us to mayor and council comments. I will go ahead and start down at this end with Councilmember McCray.
Am I always going to go first?
No, I thought we went the other way first.
I just wanted to say, of all the things, especially for anybody that's recently been watching the news, how happy and proud I am to live in Jersey Village with such an outstanding police department that took care of things that needed to be taken care of this last weekend, and how good that was for us. And they did it in a safe way, and they did it in a way that, you know, none of us as residents were in danger. It was just, it was good. It was a good job overall, and I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate that.
Councilmember Singleton.
Would echo that. I'm going to address just solely on the survey today. I'm very sympathetic to the concerns about the survey. I've had some good discussions with people about it. I look forward to discussing with the team when the feasibility study is presented. I would encourage people to remember that the survey is only a portion of the study, and that the citizen feedback is only part of it. They are studying many other aspects of it, such as talking to possible teams that would occupy the field. It was not intended to be used to gauge the financial commitment of residents. I don't really care for that question, because you're right. That survey is supposed to go out 20 miles from the city. It was, of course, everyone outside the city is going to say, yeah, I don't care if we use public funds, because only 1% of the people replying are even going to be footing the bill. I get that. As far as duplicates, you know, it doesn't stop you. That doesn't mean there aren't things in the background. You can use device ID, browser ID, lots of things to filter those out in the background. So I look forward to seeing the study when it comes out. Still waiting to see.
Councilmember Watson.
I will echo the sentiments on JVPD, and very, very proud to live in this city and have such a fine force and protecting us. And while we seem to not have a drought of crime as of late, there is a drought of weather. And so just everyone, just beware, take a look at your sprinkler systems, that sort of fun stuff. And more importantly, beware of the heat. Check on your neighbors. You know, don't do over exuberant stuff in the middle of the day. Drink plenty of water, that sort of thing. And since it's summer starts tomorrow, July 4th might be around the corner. So we're really excited about, as Kimberly had mentioned earlier, the 4th of July celebration coming up. And case in point, it's moving to the evening hours, not in the morning like it used to be. So everybody should be aware of that.
I'll just pile on and say thank you, Chief, for the hard work and the job that the officers did. So well done. And encourage everyone to come out for the July 4th event.
And I will just pile on the pile-on and also echo how proud I am to be a part of this city, and the police department is just, can't compare. I also wanted to give a shout out to Robert for the hiring process for the pool. He managed to get, I think we started at maybe 4 lifeguards to 16, so good job. I know all of the moms and the citizens are very happy that we didn't have to do reduced hours or we didn't have to do any Plan B, C, or D, so thank you, Robert. Appreciate all your hard work, and I look forward to the 4th of July.
All right, well, Chief Riggs, I hope you don't mind if I borrow your words for my public comments here to recognize Lieutenant Keel for his hard work. So these are, I want to give credit where credit is due. These are not my words, but I thought that they were worth repeating. So he sent an email to all of us after the hostage situation had been resolved, and I'm sure they probably got a little bit of rest after a long week, long day even. And he said, as you know, this past week has been extremely challenging for the Jersey Village Police Department staff. In my 43 years of service, I have never had to deal with these types of critical situations so close together. On June 16th and 17th, Lieutenant Danny Keel illustrated outstanding leadership during back-to-back officer-involved shootings in a 48-hour period. He quickly secured the crime scenes, contacted the Texas Rangers, Houston SWAT, news media, and managed them with confidence. My words here, as I'm sure many of you saw if you watched the news, you saw Lieutenant Keel there representing the city. He is a commander deserving of the acknowledgement and recognition of a job well done. He is a leader who demonstrates on a daily basis the ability to put theory into practical application in the most difficult of situations. Lieutenant Keel, thank you for being a true leader while having to navigate through these two critical situations. You performed your duties at a high level of professionalism, valor, and courage protecting our community. So I wanted to just recognize Lieutenant Keel for all of his hard work this past week. And certainly it's just been yet another feather in his cap for all of his hard work and his service to our community. So the entire Jersey Village Police Department as well deserves commendation for a job very well done. The fact that no one was hurt, that the situation was kept contained, that this guy was found very quickly, you almost couldn't ask for a better situation, other than maybe Quality Inn that would rather not have their window shot out. But hey, if that's the worst of it, we'll take it. So with that, we are going to move into executive session. City Council is now going to retire to a closed session at 8:28 p.m. pursuant to the Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.087, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations, Section 551.072, deliberations about real property, and Section 551.071, consultations with attorney in connection with the following items. Pursuant to the Texas Open Meeting Act, Section 551.087, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations, Section 551.072, deliberations about real property, and Section 551.071, consultations with attorney, a closed meeting to deliberate information from a business prospect that the city seeks to locate in Jersey Village TERS number 2, and economic development negotiations, including the possible purchase, exchange, or value of real property related thereto. We will return to open session and continue with the remainder of tonight's agenda after the closed session deliberations are concluded. Okay, the closed session was adjourned at 9:13 p.m. and no official action or vote was conducted during the closed session. Let's see, which brings us to item L1, discuss and take an appropriate action regarding items discussed in closed session regarding economic development negotiations, including the possible purchase, exchange, or value of real property related thereto, and contractual obligations of the city under existing contracts related to Jersey Village TERS number 2. And my understanding is we have no action to take, so we'll move on from that, and meeting adjourned.